No, we're streaming.
Steve thinks it's too small for him because he's got a super low bed. But I like the red floor because it suits me.
I do not have an out back.
Obviously our base before, but they redesigned it so that like the fender. So when I pull in a parking space,
All right.
I can't see the lines.
Oh.
All right, we're going live.
So it,
Good.
I'm selling it to my daughter.
So we're up and running.
What are you gonna get?
I want to get an Audi, but it's an issue.
Alrighty, so welcome everyone. Once finally got the stream up and running here. Apple Cider Q&A meetings. What was Saturday, March 16th? It's the day after the Ides of March and the day before St. Patrick's Day. So the Ides of St. Patrick, I guess. Yeah. So what was the earlier question? Walkie-talkie. So I don't know if I can point my camera at my Apple Watch and see how this works.
Oh, I got an Apple Watch. It's still in the box.
Don't hurry.
So we had a couple of questions about walkie-talkie mode on the Apple Watch. If I turn this camera on, maybe we'll be able to see it on screen. Probably too small to be anything useful. But one of the tricks in walkie-talkie is it only works with contacts. And so what we have to do is in the walkie-talkie app, you have to add a friend. So in addition to a contact, that contact has to be marked as a friend. So what we want to do, we're going to hit the round button. I still haven't figured out all the difference. The round button takes you to the menu list, and the rectangular button takes you to the recent apps. So if I go into my round button, and now I have to find the walkie-talkie app, which looks like a little walkie-talkie. And then you can invite someone to your walkie-talkie. Can I bring up a bigger window with this on it? I think I can. And I want to make a new movie. And using that camera. Yeah, that looks like it's going to work. Maybe. All right, so let me go back home. So we hit the round button. That's not going to work too well. I can't focus that small or that close. We go to the walkie-talkie button, and then you have to make your walkie-talkie available. So I actually turned mine off for a while because Jackie kept walkie-talkieing me. And then there's a little plus button at the bottom, and that's where you add a person from your contacts in order to add them to the contact list. Can I go like this? This might work better. So someone that's in your contacts, not quite. I know, if I take it off, then I can hold it steadier. And I just need to put in my passcode so it works without being on my skin. So we'll go back into walkie-talkie. Okay, that's not what I thought it was. That's a picture. I must have hit the wrong button. The button, yeah, the buttons are so small and my fingers are so big. Here we are, walkie-talkie. So then it looks in your contact list to see people you've frequently contacted, but then you can scroll all the way through your contact list and pick anyone you want out of your contacts to be part of your walkie-talkie favorites. And then that person at the other end will get a invitation, and then they can either accept or decline that invitation. And then you can walkie-talkie with them. So there's a security level that person has to accept the invitation. So you can't just walkie-talkie anybody. They have to accept your invitation. And the first thing is that person has to be in your contact list. So you may need to start with your phone and add the person to your contact list, because then it syncs the contacts between your phone and your watch. There may be a way in the watch to add someone to your contacts, because there is a contact app in here somewhere. By default, when you pair your watch to your phone, it copies every app that has a watch version. And so I got a whole bunch of stuff on here. I didn't realize it because of all the apps I had on my phone, many of them had watch versions.
You could take them off,
Yeah, I just haven't bothered.
but I mean, they'll just come off the watch and
Yeah, they'll come off the watch and not the phone. And I don't see a contact app on the watch, so that must only work through the phone. I've been playing with some of the watch faces, and where was the one that had all the stuff on it? Yeah, so that one has a lot of different complications on it. Well, I get a kick out of that. So all the extra things the watch can have. That's not gonna focus, is it? So you start with a stopwatch. Well, the hour hand, minute hand, and then you have the second hand, then you have the date, and then some of them have the day of the week. Some of them have the um, weather. So all those extra things in the watch world are called complications, because they complicate the mechanics of the watch, because it was all mechanical at the time. Yeah, and so they that sort of carried its way forward with that the technology and terminology. I'm there. Yep. So that's working. I like to leave. I'm going to leave mine running to keep the.
The actual use of the walkie-talkie. Who initiates it, and then do you have to hold it while you're talking, or is it just you touch it, then you connect to them, and then you talk, or how's that?
Yeah, you basically you tap the walkie-talkie icon, pick who you want to talk to, and then they get a notice that you want a walkie-talkie, and then then you start talking back and forth. You don't have to push anything else
So you're
at the
both
time.
connected, and it's now a duplex conversation.
It's one at a time, if I remember right.
Okay.
I haven't done it in a while. Let's see. They get an invitation. Tap and hold. Tap, hold, and talk, and then let go, and then they hear it at the other end. Yeah. So you do have to tap and hold. So pretty much like the walkie-talkie. Now, what's historically ironic is what we think of as walkie-talkies are actually handy-talkies. The walkie-talkie was the big one that was carried on your back that you could walk with it. And then when they made it smaller and smaller to fit in your hand, then it became known as the handy-talkie. But people have pretty much given that up, and now the one that fits in your hand is the walkie-talkie, because that got into the vernacular. So yeah, so there's the original walkie-talkie. Oops, nope, I wanted to make this bigger. There we go. And so it was one guy carried the radio, and then usually the lieutenant. So a private carried the radio, and the either the lieutenant or the squadron sergeant would actually do the talking.
When did the term walkie-talkie
come in? World War II, yeah. Well, first created in 1937. Yeah, the Motorola. Yeah, that was the first walkie-talkie in 1940. And then, yeah, there's the handy-talkie.
Tom Hanks.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, the handy-talkie was the one you could hold in your hand, and it was all vacuum tubes. And it wasn't until the invention of the transistor that things started getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And Nextel was a phone company a while ago, and they had a service called Push to Talk that turned your cell phone into a walkie-talkie at the time, and it made this chirping noise that sort of became synonymous with that feature. Um, and actually, I think I saw the Push to Talk acronym in there. That now the iPhone does that as well. There we go, Push to Talk. And the iWatch, when you um, start a walkie-talkie, it makes that chirping noise, which is kind of funny. But we can probably find it. Um, let's
For
do.
years, Sprint had that.
Yep.
Obnoxious.
Search for this Push to Talk chirp. There's probably a video of it. Yeah, Nextel and Sprint. I think Nextel started it, and then Sprint was the one that bought Nextel, something like that. All right. Why? Oh, because we didn't turn. Can you turn the speaker on, Shirley? Yeah. So that little chirp when it starts, a Push to Talk. Now, the whole irony is there's no useful purpose of this. Um, if you want to call somebody, just call somebody. In fact, when you're doing Push to Talk, it's speakerphone. So everyone around you can hear what you're saying, unless you've got a Bluetooth earpiece in. Um, so yeah, it doesn't really help them much. John, do you want to set it up between us?
Sure. Let me finish my.
Are you doing breathe?
Yeah.
So I need to add you to my contacts on my phone.
Okay.
I gotta find contacts. All right, contacts. We're going to let me see if you're in here. Welcome, Rick. So add.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know where to park. Did you get in?
Yeah, no, I just parked on the hill.
All right. Let me have you type your phone number in there. One, so it doesn't go out over the recording.
Yeah, that would be better. I wish you told me that. All right. Is that a cover you have on your Mac?
Yes.
Is it green just for Irish?
Oh, it's actually sort of a teal color.
Oh, it's teal.
I just kind of liked it, but I got my headband is green.
Yeah, I know, look at that, she's all St. Patty's Day now.
I actually bought it for my granddaughter and never shipped it to her, so I
Figured you.
You used it instead, huh?
yeah.
The guy at the Brugger's this morning, head to toe green. He had like knickers on that were all striped, and he had green pants, and he had a green suit coat. I mean,
Yeah.
he just went all out.
I used to do that.
Green underwear.
I just checked.
Yeah, it is now. All right, so now there's an invitation coming to your watch.
Okay.
So if you go into the walkie-talkie app, you can accept the invitation.
I did.
I'll be back later.
So now there's a big talk button. Hey, Kurt, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
So it's kind of silly, but it works. Walkie-talkie, yeah. Yep. Now I got the notification that you accepted my invitation.
Okay, that's really better.
Yeah.
I thought I saw some advantage to it in the sense of if you only had a quick comment or something that you wanted to make to
Yeah.
somebody, you wouldn't be dialing and whatever.
But you text them.
Okay. I keep thinking about in these situations where folks are not allowed to use their phones.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You could get information real quickly.
Well, that's an interesting distinction. They're not allowed to use your phone, but
Yeah,
your
they're
watch is,
using their watch.
is a phone-ish. Yeah.
But it's not like reaching into your pocket and
Yeah.
pulling out your phone
To do a
and
text.
being
Yeah.
distracted. Same thing when you're driving.
Yeah. You can glance at your watch to see what that message was. Yeah.
Because I don't think
No.
I didn't, I'll tell you why there's one, because I live alone, like, right down the way, so I take my phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so I have to watch.
Well, you don't need the cellular in the watch for that. So you can make phone calls through your watch with your phone's cellular. The watch that has cellular in it can make phone calls by itself when you're not near your phone.
Okay.
So one of the examples they gave was you go out running, you can leave your phone behind because your watch has cellular in it if you need it.
But I thought you had to get the watch with the cellular to do that.
No. Well, yes, to make phone calls when you're not with your phone, yes.
Okay.
But if your phone is near you, you can make calls through your watch without having cellular in the watch.
Okay, kind of like Bluetooth in the car or whatever.
Yeah. So there was an interesting uh, um, comment by Phil Schiller once when he was getting interviewed that you get an Apple Watch so you don't use your phone as much, so you can glance at things on your watch. You get a phone so you don't have to use your computer as much. No, your iPad as much. You get an iPad so you don't have to use your computers. Your laptop as much. You get a laptop so you don't have to use your desktop as much. And so the joke was that as long as you're using Apple products, we don't care. But we would really like if you bought one of each.
I want to do my Apple Care through Mac app.
Mm-hmm.
So do I have to come in to do that?
That'd be easiest, yes.
I can do that.
Yeah. So Apple now offers Apple Care Plus on their devices, and
Is that more expensive, I assume?
a little bit, yes.
How much a little bit?
Depends on the product you're covering.
So,
Actually, the Apple Care for iMac stayed the same at $169. The laptops went up a little bit. Let's see for iPad. So all the Apple devices come with a 1-year warranty, parts and labor on the hardware. Apple Care Plus will extend the warranty on the computers to 3 years, and it extends the warranty on the mobile devices to 2 years. So that's one step. That's what Apple Care always did. Apple Care Plus now gives you accidental damage claims, which is really popular for laptops and phones. So if you drop your phone and break the glass, it's like $100 or more, depending on the phone, to get new glass. With the Apple Care Plus, so on the iPad, it is $49 for anything that goes wrong, anything you physically break. $29 for the Apple Pencil. Did my stream just die? No, it says it's streaming. And then if we go back and go on the Mac, $99 for any screen damage or $299 for anything else. Especially handy on laptops because they tend to get dropped and the screen is broken. You break the screen on your laptop and you're looking at $700-800 because the high resolution Retina display is more expensive to repair. And then on the phones, we go back a bit. It is let's see, where is it? It's $29 for the screen, $99 for anything else. And then they have an additional feature for the phones that also gives you theft and loss protection. So with AppleCare Plus, it covers you drop it and break it, but you still have it. If the phone is actually stolen, they'll replace it for a lower fee than it would be for the whole buying a whole new phone. Although with a lot of people, the Find My iPhone feature, you leave your phone behind. Um, you use the Find My iPhone to find out where it is. Even if it's stolen, you can kind of track down where it was. But most of the police agencies tell you not to do that because you don't know how aggressive or violent the thief would be. And many times, from a lot of the stories I've seen, it's 2 or 3 owners down the road that you actually get to, and they thought they paid good money for this. They thought they didn't know it was stolen. They're not going to give it up, or they want their money back.
When I got my phone, first of all, I lost my head and didn't get my Apple Care through you. So I got this Apple Care for $199 now. Can I upgrade it to the Afton Lock?
I don't know if you can upgrade.
It says you can cancel it anytime.
Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you canceled it.
I mean, I would. What if I cancel it? Can I buy it again?
No.
Oh,
Well, within 60 days. That's the other thing with AppleCare. You have to buy AppleCare within 60 days of purchasing your device. And it has to be inspected before you can purchase it because they don't want you to break your device and then buy the AppleCare.
you know. Oh, I really didn't know.
I don't know if you can upgrade from regular AppleCare to AppleCare Plus. You'd probably have to ask them at the store.
Well, you know what what happened is they added it in with the price of the phone, and then like my monthly payment is Citizens Bank. I went to the Apple store, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah, a lot of times they'll roll that into your monthly payment so you're not paying the upfront cost for it.
I can always call up and ask.
And the cost of I don't want to put that in there. I just want to know how much it's going to cost.
Oh, didn't it show the difference?
No.
What was the $299?
That was the replacement fee.
Oh.
This won't show me the cost until I put in my serial number so it knows what device I'm buying. So let me do a Google search for costs. And somebody will have what the price is. Let's try, well, USA Today, really? And of course, because the iPhone 10 and later are more expensive devices, it probably, that's not what I wanted. It'll probably cost more for those AppleCare devices.
Okay, so when I got the 10s, I paid $199.
Yeah, on older phones, the iPhone 8 and older, it's $129.
Okay.
The iPhone 8 Plus is $149. The 10 is $199.
Did they say for up to 2 years? Is that what it is?
2 years, yes, 2 years from original date of purchase. On the computers, it's 3 years, so that's a little disconcerting. Or not well, that's the wrong word. Discouraging.
I'm sorry. Do you have cases for the 10s?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have cases for the 10s in our store.
I'm calling this week.
So that's just the service pricing. So a lot of the blogs talk about, is it worth buying AppleCare? Some people like it for the peace of mind that if anything actually goes wrong in that warranty period, you get a replacement phone after the standard 1 year warranty. And people tend to drop their phones a lot.
Okay, so right here at the bottom it says, see where it says the basic version does not protect against any, which probably is like.
Well, that's probably talking about the theft.
Oh, I thought maybe it was about the dropping it kind of thing.
No, that's the whole point of AppleCare Plus, is it protects you against dropping it and breaking it.
Right, but I don't have the plus, so
That's the only thing you can buy is AppleCare Plus. And then the additional service is AppleCare Plus with theft and loss protection.
Oh, okay. So if I drop it, I'm covered?
Yes.
Oh, all right, that's what I'm concerned about.
We've had people say they drop their phone a dozen times and it never breaks. And then you drop it that 13th time and it lands just a hair different and breaks.
You know, I had them put that glass thing on my phone.
Yeah, a lot of people like the glass protector, so that breaks instead of your phone glass.
Well, it's cracked, and so I asked the Apple store, will I have to go through the something whatever where the brand whatever, but then I won't get the same thing.
If they don't make it anymore, you won't. But if they still make the same thing, you should get the same thing.
Uh,
But most of the, well, not most, I'm gonna say the better of the screen protector glass companies, we like using Moshi. Um, if you break your screen protector, you call them and they send you another one. So there's a warranty on the screen protector itself.
what I got is a Belkin SC plus, and there's a glass. Whatever.
I don't know what Belkin's policy is. You'd have to check with Belkin.
Right, but I don't. It probably costs. Do you have like this glass? I rather I paid $40 for this, so I can't take too much aggravation anymore right now. I would rather do you have like
Yeah, we have a couple different brands.
but they put it on with the thing, so it fits like it's not that old sticky stuff, but you would put it on anyway, right?
We can do that if you need us to, yeah.
Okay.
Shirley, could you get me a glass of soda, please? And because phones tend to slide in and out of your pocket a lot, it is more likely that you're going to drop them and break them. Whenever I see someone, yeah, and that's part of the problem too. A lot, and so people will put a case on it, so then it's grippier, but then it makes it bigger. And well, and that's one of the big selling points on phones these days is how thin and svelte they are. Yeah, but yep. So I've got a case on my phone, and then I put that case into a belt clip. So my phone is normally huge.
See, that's what I used to do with I used an OtterBox with a belt clip
Yeah,
around the house.
we sell the outer boxes. They're very popular.
And then see, I just have this little case. I don't know that it's enough.
Well, it depends, and enough is hard to tell. If you, um, that's not what I wanted. It depends on how harsh you're going to be with it.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah,
In my
in and out of
pocket.
your purse, you need a thin case. You drop it on concrete all the time, you need a thicker case.
Yeah, but I will say I love the facial.
The face recognition is nice. Some people are, that's not what I wanted, are scared of the face recognition,
Well,
and they don't like the idea of it.
I was scared till I used it, and it's really.
And it works really well. One of the problems,
Very fast too.
you're right, and so one of the problems people have frequently is even with the face recognition turned on, they often have to type their passcode in. And so one of the problems is that if the face is not detected, I think 5 times in a row, then it makes you put your passcode in.
It's because you're not holding it.
Right, you're not holding it upright. Or what happens is it's down on the table and you glance over to it and it tries 2 or 3 times, doesn't work, and so then by the time you pick it up to actually look at it, it's already past that, I was wrong too many times.
Yeah, I've had to, rarely, but I mean, I have had to do it a couple times, but it's not like it's a big deal, really.
Yeah.
Does well even recognizing with and without glasses.
Yes, it
and,
does.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very, very non-interference. It's doing well.
Let me see how.
Yeah, I'm really glad I got it. And I like it's the same size screen as the 8 Plus, but it's not.
Yeah, that was the nice thing about the 10 to begin with, is it was a bigger screen in the same size phone by going edge to edge. and that's kind of where the 10R has gone now. No, not 10.4. I want 10R. The 10R is $250 less than the 10 was last year, and it's almost everything the 10 was last year, but a little better in some ways. The biggest difference is it has a LCD screen instead of an OLED screen, and and that makes it cheaper. The OLED screens are more expensive. They are technically higher quality, but most people can't tell the difference. And so for most people, the LED screen, it's an LED backlit LCD, is fine. And now that's only $750, so it's $250 less than last year's phone. And most people buy their phones on a monthly plan, so you don't notice the plan. So $32 a month, I get the phone. No, I don't care. It's a $750 phone. There's been a lot of criticism and concern about phone prices creeping up. In fact, the 10s Max is $1,500 if you max out the storage. But the new Galaxy Fold, I think, is $2,500, some ridiculous. Yeah, so phones are getting more expensive because they're adding more stuff to them. And there have been a lot of stories about, are people going to spend $1,000 on a phone? Most people don't look at the total cost. They just look at the monthly payments, because that's what we're used to anyway.
Right.
Yeah, you typically, with your cell phone contract, you were paying $50 a month for the service, $50 a month for the phone. So it was, $100 a month was a common price.
Right.
And on your 2-year contract, you paid $2,500 for that phone. And no one cared. No one looked at that. They just saw the I get a phone, yeah. And so having bigger and better phones, especially at the different colors now, is interesting. And we're seeing the phones are getting bigger and bigger screens. So let's do the 10R, the 10s Max, and the 10.
It's too big. My hand, it wasn't comfortable.
Yeah. So the 10s, the regular 10 is 5.8 inches, and then the 10R is 6.1 inches. So a cheaper phone has a bigger screen, which throws some people a little bit, but it has they call it a liquid retina screen instead of the super retina screen. So it's an LCD versus OLED. The bigger difference is the 10R's only got one camera. It doesn't have the telephoto and wide angle cameras. It only has a single camera. So if you shoot a lot of photos with your phone, you probably would like the 10s or the 10s Max better.
Did you see it's a company in Fairport that has a little camera thing? A guy made he put on his iPhone, he actually made a movie. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, a lot of people have done that.
But this is a local. It's right in Fairport. This company.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the news, and I think they said that they were about $150 to hook this on your phone to make it up.
Oh, you don't need anything on your phone to make movies. What? So what did they have?
I don't know. It was maybe a lens. Yeah.
Maybe they used a fisheye lens or something.
So I don't know. Here we go. Netflix movie. We'll find the news article. Sometimes, they've got a tripod. Sometimes the audio is better if you mic your subjects. So is that an ad or is that the actual movie? Yeah, that's an ad. So let's wait for the actual news story to start.
Smartphone optics. Well, now their special lenses for iPhones have been used to make a feature-length film coming to Netflix, all shot on an iPhone.
That film was directed by Steven Soderbergh. Selena Lewis has more from the company's creators. Lights, camera, action is now as easy as typing in your phone's passcode and opening up photos.
Anyone that has a smartphone at all. So we have We have multiple versions of our
Hey,
lens.
Shirley,
and we
call him to
have
come in for a
15
presentation.
creators around the world who are using our lenses
Jim?
to create some pretty innovative content.
Scott Cahill, a former Kodak employee, started Moondog Labs in 2014 from a Kickstarter campaign. His company's
And he's got a
lenses attached to
stabilized tripod.
turn anyone into Spielberg. If you have talent and a few $100, that is.
It really puts the actors at ease.
It looks similar to the Olo clip,
It's something that everyone's used
which
to
is a popular one already.
You not only does it put the into a larger gear, and I think that enables some shots that you would be really hard pressed to get otherwise.
It's even gotten the attention of major directors like Steven Soderbergh, who used one of Moondog's lenses to High Flying Bird, a full-length movie debuting on Netflix. Cahill says the beauty of his lenses, though, is that they're not just for Hollywood.
Sure, I think it really democratizes filmmaking, so there aren't the limits that there used to be. And these days, with the phone that you have in your pocket and a couple $100 lens, you can do some things that really were unheard of just a few years ago.
Cahill and others at Moondog hope that such a high-profile project can grow their company and help inspire creators.
The exciting part about what Steven Soderbergh is doing with High Flying Bird is that he's making iPhone filmmaking more and more acceptable across the board.
This is the trailer for that film, High Flying Bird. Again, it was shot entirely on an iPhone. The movie will debut streaming on Netflix on February 8th. In the studio, Selena Lewis, News 8.
There was a let me see if I go to Twitter
It's on Netflix now, High Flying Bird.
and I would search for shot on iPhone. So Apple has a hashtag they've been doing called shot on iPhone. And so people have been posting. Actually, people started the hashtag themselves, shot on iPhone, for all of the cool things that they're shooting on an iPhone. And then Apple took that hashtag and made an advertisement out of it, and so and a contest out of it. So and there was some early criticism that Apple wasn't paying these people for their movies. Part of the problem is they're posting their stuff on a public forum. Does that mean they enter the public domain? So the courts haven't decided any of that yet. But it becomes interesting. So let me see if I can find that ads that they were doing. Yeah, share your best moments with shot on iPhone. And now Apple did when they found, oh, that's pretty. Was that is that Petra at Jordan? They oh, the contest is over. So they were basically accepting submissions for the contest, and then they were going to use those photos in advertising campaigns throughout the world. They did somewhere in the fine print down here at the bottom. The judges were amazing photographers as well, and Phil Schiller. Somewhere down here at the bottom, it says what they're going to do. Yeah, so they are allowing you as the photographer keep your rights, but you're granting Apple a worldwide license for 1 year. So, and that's not bad.
You famous and
Yeah,
they get to use it for free for a year.
right. And some of the professional photographers were a little annoyed by that because they're used to selling their photography for ad campaigns. But then, who was it? Rene Ritchie on MacBreak was talking about that. That there are some what's it called? Shot on spec. That a company asks photographers to do something for spec. It basically means we'll use your work for free and we'll get you publicity. And the ones that they use, they are using that for publicity, and the rest of them they're not. But it was interesting that they took something that people had been doing all along, the shot on iPhone hashtag, and expanded it to a real ad campaign. And can you imagine going down the street and seeing your photo in a giant billboard? That'd be really cool. I wonder if they have the winners somewhere. And so they've had this shot on iPhone for a long time. It's neat that they've done this. So where are the winners posted?
Where is that first picture?
It's in Jordan.
Oh,
It's the ancient city of Petra.
oh my God.
I'm pretty sure.
It looks like Red Rock, you know, the Red Rock.
Yeah.
The whole thing is carved into the
Yeah.
Winning photos will be featured February 7th. Panel of judges. So the announcement was in February. It's odd that this article they didn't go. Yeah. Well, maybe not odd that they didn't go back and change their press release to say here's the winning updates. So let me see if I can find.
I thought I saw a billboard with somebody on it.
Shot on iPhone, Apple winners. Let's look for that. Here are the contest winners. Well, that's a interesting photo with the color contrast of the building.
Chinese to me.
Yeah, it is. Chinese
Trash pandas. No, that's kind of neat.
So those were both on the ISX Max.
Yeah, the 10s Max has the best camera of all of the Apple iPhones so far. Although now the Galaxy 10s is out, it has a better camera. So now Apple has to make an even better camera on the iPhone 11. That's neat. There's an 8 Plus. That was an even older one. It's nice it's all not the super latest whiz bang phones. That's kind of neat. Well, another question while we're scrolling through photos.
Can we talk a little bit? We started the conversation about the security that is in place for iCloud and restores and other things
Okay.
in their network, and the fact that there hasn't been any announced breaches in all these years by comparison to everybody and their dog's been hacked from the
Yeah.
Department of Defense to the IRS to the Equifax.
Oh, they just said like, wasn't it a FaceTime?
Yeah, there was a FaceTime bug. And so there was some irony. How can I find it? It was CES Apple billboard.
If you were just
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So at CES in January, there it is. Apple bought the side of a hotel as a play on the Las Vegas slogan, "What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone." Because Apple is really big into privacy, security, they are claiming that privacy is one of their main commitments. What? Did I spell it wrong? Apple.com/privacy. There we are. The irony, several ironies there. One, it was on the side of a Marriott who was just involved in a massive 500 million record breach from a company they bought several years ago. Just announced that several years before that, they had a breach.
was it in Times Square that Marriott?
No, it was worldwide, global.
Okay.
And then the added irony is that as soon as you put Facebook or Google or anything else on your phone, that is not safe anymore. It's going to Facebook and Google. But Apple themselves is committed to privacy. They have done things to the phones over the years. Let me see what they have here. With the file system is encrypted, So all the data on your phone is encrypted by default, and without the password, no one can access your data. Which is pretty much, in general, without your password, your data is safe. So it all comes down to how good is your password and how weak is your password. And the thing that a lot of people misunderstand are security questions. And because people forget their passwords, most companies have a forgot password procedure. Apple has one at iforgot.apple.com. And that will ask you your security questions to verify that it's really you. When you set up your account, you create your security questions and then forget them. And it may have been years since you set up your account, and you don't remember who your high school best friend in high school was, because high school was 50 years ago. So what happens is people will make their security questions too easy, or we've seen instances of what we call social engineering, where the bad guy calls up a company and said, hi, I'm so and so, I forgot my password, and are able to convince them to turn over the password. The other problems that happened is people that use the same password on multiple websites. So when one website gets breached, which happens significantly and frequently, in fact, there was another one. My accounts were lost both in Collection One and in verifications.io. So there have been 7.8 billion accounts were breached. And if we go to the password link, well, so first, if you put in your email address, no, well, let me put in Steve's. So Steve's email was pwned. Let me put in my address. So the guy that runs this website, Troy Hunt, he is a good guy, white hat security researcher, and does it say how many? Seven breaches my address has been found in. So these companies that had their information stolen from them, sometimes, so in Adobe's case, it was encrypted passwords, which is good, but the password hint was in plain text. So if your password hint is your password, that's bad. So because a lot of people make the hint their password, or if your password hint is too easy, or can be looked up. So you write in, Super Bowl 2000, and you look up Super Bowl, who won the Super Bowl, who won the Super Bowl, try that one. Who lost the Super Bowl, try that one.
In my case, that one had no idea. I gave myself a hint, and I sort of knew what the hint was about, but I couldn't really remember what the hint was about.
Yeah. And so that becomes tricky. And so with other companies, let me get down to an actual company, LinkedIn. This was an interesting one because the hack occurred in 2016, and then came back around again in 2012, came back around in 2016, because the list of breached passwords showed up on the black market for purchase. So that came around again. So what can happen is if you use the same password on multiple websites, one website gets breached, they potentially know that password. So if you use the same password at Adobe that you did at Amazon, or the same password from LinkedIn that you used at PayPal, the bad guys will try that password on other sites because they know people reuse passwords. The bad guys even break into other bad guys. Online Spam Bot was a spammer list that was created by one researcher that got stolen by another researcher. And then Collection One, and then now verifications.io, they are collections of usernames or passwords that have been collected from all the different breaches and are available for sale on the black market. Was it Bruce Schneier? I think it was Bruce Schneier, who's a very well-known security researcher. He looked up the guy and bought the list, or asked about buying the list, $40 for 700 million usernames and passwords. But then the guy said, "No, I've got an even better one you can have for $50." Yeah. So, Have I Been Pwned also has a password section, so which allows you to type in your password, and it's safe because it's hashed and done. But you still might not.
Still trusting them.
Right, and he's so far is okay. But put in an old password that you don't use anymore. So I'm going to put in password, and password has been used as a password 3.6 million times.
I actually had a client that used password as her password, and then she wondered, why did I get hacked?
You didn't get hacked. You're an idiot. No, but you can't. How do you say that politely?
Well, yeah, especially since she's paying me money.
Right. Now, a lot of times people say, I don't have anything worth stealing, which is wrong. You have anonymity. So if I want to break into someone's account, I'm not going to use my name. I'll use yours. And then when the police try to track down who broke in, which is very hard to do anyway, they find you, not me. So you have that level of anonymity. And there are always banks that will give credit cards out to people. So even if your credit is horrible, you might get a $500 card. Well, I've got 700 million account informations here. I can go to, 10,000 banks. And if I get a $500 card from, say, 100 of them, I've made a fortune. So you always have something to steal or something worth stealing, something to lose. So you want to be careful about that. So the protections all boil down to your password. So you want to make sure you have a good password. Safari will offer to create a password whenever you log into a website. And it, in fact, here's a little, this is the icon you'll see, a little keychain icon. And I can click on that and it will, now this thinks I'm logging in. So it's asking me, do I want to save this password for this website? So then Safari remembers it for you, so you don't have to remember it again. Or I can look up passwords for other websites that I may have used that I shouldn't use on this website too. Or if you're on a new site, it will suggest a password, which is usually like 20 characters with uppercase, lowercase symbols. So, yeah, so all the things that make the password, you have no hope of remembering it, but the computer remembers it for you, so you don't need to remember it.
But you're probably better off from a security standpoint not having Safari remember your passwords.
Well, and that's a point because anyone who gets your computer can get to your passwords.
That's right.
So you have to have a good password on your computer. And set your computer to require that password. So if we go to System Preferences and Security, one of the options is to require a password after sleep. So a lot of times, one of the dangers is, especially on a laptop, where you're at a coffee shop and you go up to refill your coffee. So in that 60 seconds you're away from your machine, someone could come in, do something on your computer, install a program, in order to then sit back at their leisure and doing stuff. So what I could do is I could just go in here in less than 20 seconds, turn on file sharing, go into options, and where is it? Allow guest. There we go. Everyone. So everyone read and write access. So that lets guests into my computer. So then I can go over to the next table and at my leisure log into your computer and find all the files I want. And probably find a file you have called passwords or important stuff or something like that. And so having a good password on your computer, having a password after screensaver is an important thing now. File Vault is an Apple service to encrypt all the data on your disk. So without your computer password, the disk is inaccessible. We joke that encryption makes it a block of random noise. And your password turns the noise back into a file. Without the password, the noise is noise. The danger is if you forget your password, it's a blob of noise. You can't get your password back very easily. And having a encryption on your hard drive can slow your hard drive down. If you have an older computer with a spinning hard drive, that slowdown can be noticeable. The newer computers with the solid state drives, it's not as bad. But I still don't like the idea of File Vault because it will. Oh, Rigel came out. File Vault makes your computer harder to recover if there's a problem. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can tell his hackles are raised. It's a pet me, bite me. Yeah. So. Yeah. So encrypting the data on your hard drive makes it harder to recover from problems. So it makes having a backup even more important. And all the data is stored as a blob of noise with an algorithm to recover your data. If some of the bits fail, now the algorithm doesn't work anymore. And theoretically, your data is gone because it's just a blob of noise. So you want to have a good password. If you turn on encryption, you want to make sure you have at least one backup, if not 2 or 3. Apple, we're really annoyed they stopped selling the time capsules. And we got to look into a new NAS to use. So the time capsule is a wireless backup drive. You can always plug a hard drive into your computer to back up, but you have to remember to do that. And on the laptop, you often don't remember to do that.
I do remember to do that, and it tells me if it hasn't been done in so many days.
Yeah, it tells you if it hasn't been done in a week. A week could be a long time, especially for small business. So some people ask us, how often should I back up? And our answer is, how much do you want to lose? If you don't mind losing a week's worth of stuff, back up once a week.
How do I know when it's full or near full?
When your backup drive gets full, Time Machine will tell you. Okay. So one of the options in here is to notify when old backups are deleted. So when the drive gets full, and you can always look at the drive too to see if it's full or not. So right now I have 455 gigs of my 3 terabyte drive free. So you can look in your Time Machine preferences to see how much stuff is free. You can look on the disk to see how much space is free. And when the space fills up, it will automatically delete the oldest backups to make room for new backups. Some people prefer to get a new disk at that point. So the point of Time Machine is you have a backup, you can go back in time and find your old stuff. You don't know when your stuff was lost. So I worked on this project 2 years ago and I need a file from it, and I go back, well, it's gone. And if your backup only goes back 1 year, you're screwed. So what we often like to tell people is when your backup drive gets full, get a new backup drive, and then put your backup drive in a data-ready fire safe, just in case you need to go back that far. On the time capsule, you can always add a second drive, or we used to say you get a new time capsule because there's a better technology out then. So they've gone from G to N to AC. But now Apple has stopped, they've stopped developing the time capsule, but they're still selling them, which is so far okay because the next wireless standard isn't ready yet. So AC, the current standard, is fine. But as soon as they come out with a new standard, we're going to be looking for a new network storage drive. And because it's on your network, it will back up your computer wirelessly. So with your laptop, you don't have to remember to plug your hard drive in because you're on the network. It's off back in the corner, backing things up anyway. And if you pull down the Time Machine menu, which looks like a little clock going backwards, it will tell you when your last backup was. I back up this computer once a week because we pretty much only use it once a week.
I have a question about Time Machine. I understand the general concept. It makes an image of your hard drive, and then it makes an image that updates your drive as it goes on. I don't know how to really use it. I mean, what would I do if I wanted to find a specific file?
So if you lose a file, you would go to the folder. Well, let me go into my documents folder. You would go to the folder that's missing from, um, and then you would go to the time machine menu and say enter time machine. It would then look in your backup, and we'll see how fast this works. Network drives are a little slower, but it's more convenient that way. So then you can search for the name of the file you're missing, or you can tell it to go back in time. So now we're looking at May 21st, 2017, and I can go forward with
What file are you looking for right
now. No, none, because I haven't lost anything.
See, that's my. I've never lost anything that I know of. I haven't ever used it to find anything. I don't really know how.
Sometimes
This is how.
it's useful if you were working on some document and you realize that, oh, I deleted all these other sections and I didn't mean to. And so you say, oh, I want to go back to a previous version of that. And Time Machine is very good at being able to
Right.
help you to find that one.
So when you realize you're missing a file, you go to the folder it's missing from, go into Time Machine and look for the name of that file, and it will find it for you.
Okay, and then you bring it up into your.
Yep, and then you click the restore button, and it will bring it. It will restore it from the backup and bring it back to your computer.
The file that is.
Well, if it's missing, there's nothing to replace. But if you're bringing back an old version, it will ask you if you want to replace it or keep them both. Probably copy of, or yeah, might put a 1 at the end of it, or maybe the date.
A lot of times it's like, whatever, and it just says copy. I haven't done it in the backup, but just in general.
And if you use the up and down arrows, it looks for differences in the folder. So right now there's 858 files in that folder. If I go, nope, that's forward in time. If I go backward in time, something changed between those two times. So if I go farther back in time again, well, the file count is the same, but I'm guessing the date on one of the files changed. So it knows to go back because there was a difference between those two folders. So normally you would either type the name of the file you're missing, or look through the folder to find the name of the file you're missing in the backed up list.
So rather than scrolling on the right-hand side, going back through time, by using the arrows, it's looking for a difference in the file that you've highlighted.
Yep.
Okay, so
or if I click on a different date, then it will go back and find that date automatically.
But that doesn't tell you it's different. It just tells
Right.
you.
So if you know, well, it was here on the 5th, so I'll go back to the 5th and look for it. Or you just type in the thing you're missing. So that's if you lose a single, get a new computer, you can use your backup to copy all your data from your old computer to your new computer. So in most cases, Time Machine sits back there running and you never have to use it. And when you do have to use it, you've usually forgotten how, so then you look it up or ask someone. But basically, you go to the folder the file's missing from, and then say enter Time Machine and search for the file name you're missing.
It can be annoying, though, to have to listen to the hard drive when it starts doing its backup.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about having the time capsule in the other room is I don't hear it. Except when I'm sitting in the other room, then I hear it spin up and down.
And there's no way to change how frequently?
The default, yes, there is. So the default for Time Machine is every hour. So it backs up every hour. So you probably didn't do much in an hour, so it will be quick. And it means you don't lose more than an hour's worth of work. And then it keeps hourly backups for 24 hours. And then it condenses the hourly backups into a day, keeps daily backups for a month, and then condenses the days into weeks, and keeps the weekly backups until the drive is full.
Does the backup trash?
No.
Okay.
But it backed up the file before it went into the trash. So the default is once an hour. There is a program called Time Machine Editor.
But is it only if you have your backup plugged in? Your portable?
Yes, the backup drive has to be plugged in, or you have to be using a network backup drive. Yeah, Time Machine Editor is a third-party program that lets you change the increments for Time Machine, whether you want it to back up every X hours or every X days.
Or do not back up between certain hours.
Yeah.
That can be nice.
So, which is interesting because
Doesn't actually, at night it doesn't back up when it's.
You back up every
yes,
hour.
Yeah, but not when I'm sleeping, because I'll check to see when the last backup was, and it would have been hours ago.
there's another setting
Well,
depending on how new your computer
it might be
is.
an energy setting or something.
Yeah, in Energy Saver, there's a setting called Power Nap that newer model computers support. So when the computer is asleep but still plugged into power, it will wake up from sleep a little bit. So it's not fully asleep, it's just napping. And it will check for your mail, it will check for updates, and it will back up your computer. And
I was worried that maybe he said it hasn't been done for hours.
Well, if that is turned off, then
or if you're on battery, it won't back up on battery because it doesn't want to drain your battery.
well, this is a desktop machine.
Yeah, so it should be backing up.
And what are you using to back up?
She's got a time machine capsule,
Oh, okay.
or time capsule, I should say. And she's also got 2 other external hard drives.
So you can actually set Power Nap separately for battery and power on a laptop. So when the power adapter is plugged in, it will nap. But when it's on battery, it won't nap because they don't want the battery to drain. And the other thing too is when the computer's sleeping, you haven't done any work that needs backed up. So pretty much the only thing it's backing up is new email messages that have come in, notification messages, iMessage stuff, things like that have come in. But you probably don't need backed up anyway at that time.
I got a yellow thing that says service battery.
So you have a service battery warning. So that means the battery in your computer is getting old
Okay.
and will not last as long as it used to when it was new.
Okay.
So you can go in for a battery replacement. Unfortunately, that's a Retina, isn't it? So battery replacements are expensive, $200 to $300, because the battery is glued to the underside of the top case. So the entire top case, keyboard. Somebody has a ring doorbell and motion at their house. The battery, top case, keyboard, trackpad, all has to be replaced. So that makes it a little bit expensive. If you don't use your computer on battery power very often, then it may not matter. Generally speaking, the batteries are good for about 1,000 recharge cycles.
I think I got this in 2013.
Yeah. So if you charge your battery every day, that's about 3 years.
I do charge
Yeah.
every day.
If you go into the Apple menu and then about this Mac, when you go into System Report, that will tell you how many charge cycles your battery has. If I go down to power here, so my battery has 66 cycles on it. There are deeper tests we can run at any Apple Service Center that tell you a little more information about the health of your battery, because it's not just the number of cycles, it's the full charge capacity. So the full charge capacity of this computer is 6531 watt hours or milliamp hours. I don't know if that's good or not, because I don't know what the original charge capacity was. So there are third-party tools that tell you that too. What you looking for?
I can't get to that.
Go to the Apple menu, choose About This Mac.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then choose System Report. And then choose Power on the left. Yep. There's one called Coconut Battery that's very popular. In fact, I probably even have that on here because we've talked about it for past. Cocoa. How do you spell coconut? There we go. Coconut Battery. I have an update. So my battery is at 98.8% charged, and it is at 97.9% of the original charge capacity.
And where'd you find that one?
This is a third-party program.
Oh, okay.
So I had a battery today. We did a phone. It was at 91% capacity, which is still really good, but it had 1,200 cycles on it, which is really bad. And we've also seen batteries that the condition, the charge capacity is 20%, but it's only got 100 cycles on it. So it's really weird.
Lately, my friend, okay, so that would be the same place, right? And then,
On the phone, it's in settings, battery health.
okay, so all right, so here I am in here, and it says service battery cycle count. What number do I want to look at?
The cycle count.
671.
So that's about 2/3 of the way through the average life. Yeah, about 1,000 recharge cycles.
I've had this since 2013. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I use
Or
it every day.
1,000 cycles or 3 to 4 years.
You know, I use it every day. So I mean, but it's just, but it was actually funny. I tried to shut it down before I came over here. It wouldn't do it, and I'll be in this week. Let's see the big dollars.
If it hasn't been shut down in a while, it can take a little longer to shut down as it cleans up stuff.
Just wouldn't do it at all.
A lot of times they'll get stuck on that spinny thing at shutdown, and you just wait longer, and it will finish when it's ready. But it's annoying when you're trying to take your computer somewhere. So you don't always have to shut down your laptop. You just close the lid and carry it off. But it isn't. It is a good idea to restart every now and then, and there's usually an update that it needs to restart by. So my computer's been running for 27 days, 3 hours, and 26 minutes. There's a command called uptime that will tell you how long your computer's been running. And it's, especially on servers, there's kind of a geeky competition with server managers on how long their server's been running without restarting. I think I had our server at the office was running over a year without needing to reboot. And then I finally installed the updates that it needed to make it reboot.
Now, when you use Drive DX, the information that it says about how much life is left in your drive, I was trying to read that the other day, and I wasn't sure what it was telling me.
Yeah, I've played with Drive DX. I've had occasions where one of Apple tools says Smart is failing. So Smart is a technology built into hard drives that is supposed to help you or help the computer determine if the drive is going to fail or not. It does the minimum work it can, and we've found that it isn't really that smart. Although if it predicts a failure, there's probably a failure coming. But we've seen a lot of cases where the drive we know has failed, but it hasn't predicted the failure. So we've had occasions where one of the Apple tools says Smart is failing, and another Apple tool says Smart is okay. In fact, in that system preferences or system information we were at earlier, if we go into the SATA line, and my microphone is battery dead, so I need to go to the other one, and then I can turn off this one. And hopefully my audio will stay on AirPods. Yep. I don't have any. I don't have.
Cancer. Did you hear that?
There's yeah. It's too low a power to do anything. So if you have a spinning drive or your flash drive is connected to the SATA bus, then you will get the Smart status, whether it's verified or failing. On the newer Macs, the drives are connected to the PCI bus. Where is the PCI bus here? Here we go, NVMe Express. And does this support Smart? No, it doesn't look like that supports Smart either. Doesn't have Smart, but it has Trim.
It supports dumb.
Yeah. And so there's a program called DriveDX that will give you lots and lots and lots of information about your hard drive.
So whenever it says free download, it makes me really nervous.
Especially one like this where there's a free button and then there's a buy button. Virtually every download ever is free. To use the program after you download it, you may have to pay.
Oh,
So
I just worry about it being legitimate or.
well, you have to trust the company is coming from, and a Google search will usually tell you if it's a reputable company or not.
Yeah, I always type in, is this product any good or is it a scam?
Yeah. What happened to my
Make sure that it wasn't the company
test?
itself.
Yeah, that's working. Yeah, make sure it's not that company. And we were talking about that earlier. Companies will pay for people to put good reviews of their software and bad reviews of their competitors' software. So DriveDX gives you all this information about your hard drive, the things that the SATA controller is reporting. You almost never have any idea what any of it means unless you're that deep into how SATA controllers work. From a general level, if anything gives you a message that your hard drive thinks it's dying, back up immediately if you haven't already, and be prepared for the drive to die. If it's an important computer, I'm trying to find the right word, so like small business computers that you run your business day to day on it, when the drive starts feeling wrong or when something's going wrong, replace it. It's cost of doing business. Something could go wrong. You don't want your business to be down, so replace it before it does go wrong. We hear that all the time from customers who bring in their broken computers. I use it for my business all the time. I can't be without it. Well, it broke, so you are without it. We'll do as much as we can, as fast as we can. Do you have any backups? No. Do you have a computer you can use in the meantime? No. Oh, all right. Maybe you might want to think about that.
I think the word you were looking for is critical.
Yeah, thank you. If it's a critical program, critical computer, then you really want to make sure it's working right. There is a program called SpinRite, GRC, and Gibson Research Corporation. Yeah, it's too big. SpinRite is his commercial program. It's only $80, which is pretty darn cheap. At the moment, it requires a PC with BIOS to run, but you can use a USB drive to scan your Mac disks. We've even seen there's ways to make a VM. So you can use VirtualBox to make a free VM. It uses FreeDOS. It's like a 60K program. He was so mad when it went to a second allocation block on his drive when it got bigger, so that it will scan your hard drive. Doesn't matter what OS it has, doesn't matter what file system it has on it, but it reads and writes all the blocks. Let me see if he has a picture of it. Screenshots. Reads and writes all the blocks on the disk to make sure the disk is working right. And it will, sure, go ahead. A lot of the times the disk, so it's even a DOS screen, because it was written 30 years ago. Well, actually, probably 40 years ago now, originally. And so here we go, looking through all the blocks on the screen. So it looks through all your data. And there's a lot of error correction built into the hard drive protocols itself. So many times he has a lot of testimonials about, I ran SpinRite and my computer works again, but SpinRite didn't find any problems. Well, because the act of SpinRite reading every block on the disk, and you have a 1 terabyte disk, there's 1 trillion bytes on the disk. So it can take hours, if not days, to run these scans. The act of reading the data, the drive had trouble reading it. It ran its internal error correction, fixed the problem, and great, your data is back without you realizing it. If it does find a problem, Does he have another screen? Well, there's the snapshot data. There we are. If the drive does find a problem, it looks through the sector and tries to recover the data. So sometimes the drive will try to read a sector and can't, and then just give up and say error. Sometimes with SpinRite, it tries again and again and again, and looks through each byte in the sector, and it might only be one of the 512 bytes in the sector that's bad, and it can often resurrect that byte by looking at the bytes around it. And so SpinRite has been called magic. It can resurrect dead drives. It can recreate Windows boot failures. So the typical thing people do is the Windows, you get a blue screen of death on Windows. Oops, I didn't want to go that far off. Blue screen of death on Windows, and SpinRite will resurrect your drive and come back up again.
So what the heck is going wrong with ALSoft and DiskWarrior?
All right, we'll get to that in a second. So SpinRite 6 only runs on a PC with BIOS. 6.1 will run on UEFI computers, which means newer PCs and Macs. So it will run natively on a Mac, and we're anxiously awaiting that, so we don't have to keep an ancient PC to run our drives on.
So 6.1 is not out yet?
No.
Okay.
He does have a very active news group community where he's got betas available for people that need to try it out. What's interesting, if you try to boot it on a Mac now, keyboard and mouse don't work because it doesn't talk to the USB driver. So it'll boot on an Intel-based Mac. It just, you can't do anything after it starts booting. Yeah.
Once you've bought it, they keep your email on file, and I think if you could down 6.1.
Right. If you buy 6 now, 6.1 will be free. And then he does very nominal upgrade costs going back, I think forever. And this program has been around literally for 40 years. Version 7 is going to be a pay upgrade. The other big thing 6.1 has is a new it's a new way he's allocating memory because computers have more memory now. So the DOS version he's running only uses 640K of memory. So on a newer computer, it will be able to do a terabyte an hour. So it will be significantly faster than it currently is. So ALSoft is a Mac company that makes a program called DiskWarrior, and DiskWarrior is a Mac program that looks at your disk directory. The disk directory keeps track of where all your files are. So it's kind of like the card catalog in a library. If the directory gets messed up, your computer has a hard time finding the files on the drive. If the directory is too messed up, it can't find any of the files, and you get a flashing question mark because it can't boot the drive. So DiskWarrior has been an essential Mac disk utility for a long time. Unfortunately, every time Apple does a major change in the OS or drive structures, ALSoft takes a long time to come up with new versions. So when they switched, I've been using this for years. When they switched from MFM to HFS, it took like a year or two for them to catch up, and then from HFS to HFS Plus. So 2 years ago now, Apple switched to APFS, which was optional under High Sierra, but it's now default under Mojave.
Well, you don't have a choice under Mojave at all.
Right. Well, you can manually format the drive, but then when you install Mojave, it'll switch it to APFS.
Right.
So you have to go to great pains to keep it HFS Plus. So currently, it will not run on an APFS disk, and we are anxiously awaiting an upgrade to Disk Warrior, so it will let us run on an APFS disk.
I can't believe it's taken them this long and they're still not
Yeah.
up to speed.
Yeah. So the alternative is to use Apple's Disk Utility, which doesn't do as good a job as Disk Warrior, but it's better than nothing. Yeah. So in your utilities folder is the Disk Utility program, and it will, there's a first aid button, and it will check your directory. If your disk doesn't boot, you can use either the recovery volume with Command R or the internet recovery to run Disk Utility to try to repair your disk. Or it's such a cool feature being able to boot your computer over the internet, and it boots the recovery volume over the internet and will let you reinstall the OS from the internet. Partly because the disks that used to come with computers, everyone would lose them. So we'd get people would come in, I need to reinstall the OS. Where's your disk? Oh, I lost them.
Well, they gave it to somebody else.
Right, or it's a used computer and they didn't get the disks, which is technically illegal. The disks are supposed to come with the computer. So starting in System 10.7, they started making. Actually, it was the MacBook Air, the first Mac that didn't have a disk drive. So had a USB thumb drive that came with the OS. And then with 10.7, they created the internet recovery. So now your OS is available on the internet and you don't need a disk drive. And they stopped including disks in the computer because most people lost them anyway.
Is the average user supposed to be doing this?
Generally, no. You have a problem, you call Apple, and Apple walks you through doing this.
Oh, well, I mean, I would think it would be something where I would come to.
Yeah, or bring it into a shop, yeah. Dennis was telling a story that where he works, they found a whole bunch of old Mac disks, system disks. Some of them still sealed because he works at the Eastman School, and they get 100 Macs and they might only open 3 or 4 or 10 boxes of disks that each Mac came with. So they were selling those on eBay until eBay stopped it because that's a violation of Apple's copyright. The disks say right on them they must be included with the Mac. Right. With the computer it came with, not any computer. Windows has a very similar license, but it's a lot more general. It just says it has to be included with hardware. So a lot of the PC companies will sell you a mouse. You buy a $5 mouse to get the cheap Windows version. So Windows retail is $200. Windows OEM, which is designed for equipment manufacturers, is like $100. So if you sell Windows with hardware, you can sell it as the OEM version. And so they would bundle a mouse to make it, technically it came with new hardware. The intent was it would actually be a booting computer. But so now Microsoft has sort of done the same thing now. They have their Windows ISOs, they call them.
Yeah, see, I use Office for Mac 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do now to upgrade it.
Right. So you could buy. So Microsoft Office 2011 has stopped getting support.
There might have been a 16.
Right. There was a 2016 that you've missed.
Oh yeah, it's 19.
The current version is 2019. Yep. And they actually, even the 2011 was the last version to come on disk. 2016 is download only, and 2019 is download only. But 2011 is available for download if you lost your disk. So the bigger problem with Microsoft products is losing your license code, which is on the disk. So that was a bigger issue. Starting in 2016, you must register your license code with Microsoft Online. It used to be optional. Now it's a requirement. So if you do forget your license code, you log into your Microsoft account and get it back again. The other side effect is that they can now enforce license restrictions. So you buy Microsoft Office per computer. So it's $150 per computer.
See, I don't think that's fair. If you have two computers and you're the same person, like I have an iMac and this.
Most of the companies, and I'm pretty sure Microsoft does, they do have what's called a non-concurrent license for a single person. So if you have a desktop and a laptop, you can buy one copy, install it on both computers, as long as you don't use them at the same time.
Oh, okay. Well, I would.
Which is typically.
So where is the next Office for Mac?
At Microsoft.
Okay.
They do sell a box, and we have the boxes at our store. In the box is a license code with instructions on how to go online and download it.
Oh, okay.
So they don't have a physical disk anymore. That makes the boxes smaller. And if you need to reinstall Office, you can go online and reinstall it if you need to. There's actually a really cool website, macadmins.software. And this is a great resource for Mac administrators because it has links to all of Microsoft Office downloads.
Oh.
So I never have to remember where the link is at Microsoft. I just go there and download it. But you still need a license key. So it doesn't help you to download it. You would need a license key to actually run it.
Okay.
But again, so this is a free download, but you need a license to run it.
I mean, am I eligible for a free upgrade?
No.
They
don't do free upgrades.
Okay.
Consider 365.
So the other option is Office 365.
I think they give you five machines.
Yes.
As a home user, you can get 5 machines for your $99.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So Microsoft Office, as I said, was $150 per computer for home and student. They have a home and business version is $225 per computer, or for $99 a year. Second, before that, $69 a year per computer for Office 365 Personal. So if you've only got one computer, that would be enough. $70 a year is the problem with most people. The $100 a year is a better value because it gives you 5 computers. That should be down here somewhere. Is it 6 now? No, Skype on 6 computers. I don't see the limit. It's 5 computers, 5 phones, and 5 tablets. So if you also want to run Microsoft Office on your iPad, that would be how you do it. But the alternative for free is either Apple's iWork suite that would have come with your device anyway, or it can be downloaded from the App Store. Or there's a third-party program, open source, called LibreOffice, and that's a free Office suite that does everything Microsoft Office does for free, and it will read Office files, just like Apple's iWork suite is free and reads all of Office files. If you routinely share documents with Office users, you have to remember to save your file as an Office file. So for a lot of people, it's more convenient to use Microsoft Office because then it just saves it as an Office document and you can share with your people. Yeah. The other thing we're also seeing now is more people doing online Google Docs, even Microsoft Office online. They have a free version that works on the web. And one of the big advantages is collaboration. So you can have several people editing a document at the same time in widely disparate places. So if you have a small group of team of people that work on documents together, so we could technically do this at the board meetings. We could all edit the meeting minutes together at a time. In fact, we used to do that at the main meetings where Dennis would help me type meeting notes. Yeah. So that allows multiple people to work on a single document at the same time. Microsoft Office kind of has the name, the 800-pound gorilla. So that's what most people think that they need, but they don't. I am still. So it's now 6. It used to be 5. They upped it to 6. So
Well,
six computers.
Register and move it from machine to machine.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to move from machine to machine. One of the problems we get into a lot is with Microsoft and Adobe products, when someone upgrades to a new computer, the licenses don't automatically transfer. So you frequently have to call Microsoft or Adobe to transfer the license, unless you can find your box that has the license codes in it.
Office for Mac there?
Yeah, it's $150 for one computer, for a one-time purchase, or $70 a year for one person, or for not one person, one computer, and $100 a year for 5 computers or 6 computers. I got to remember now to change that to 6. 6 computers, 6 phones, and 6 tablets.
Okay.
So that's handy for a home where mom, dad, and the 3 kids.
Also, Google Docs.
Google Docs is free. Yep, for the same sort of thing.
You know that, like my grandkids use Google Docs in
Yep.
school.
A lot of schools are using Google Docs because it's much cheaper than Microsoft Office was. And now we're seeing even some colleges are switching to Google Docs because it's much cheaper than Microsoft Office was. Alrighty, I am going to take a break and be right back.
Okay, before I forget, I want to tell you, I had sent an email to George thanking him for all the, emails, all the information he sent, because a lot of it's very useful to me. And he responded that he appreciated that because he hadn't heard from anybody else, and he didn't know if it was annoying to people to get all these emails.
If it's annoying, you usually hear.
Well,
if it's not annoying, you don't.
That's what I said to him. I said people probably just either they may use it and just not respond, or they just whatever. But so I said I would mention it today.
Good.
And let him know because I look at it.
So I guess next time we see George, we'll have to say, George, we just want to let you know everybody appreciates it.
Oh my God, this is coming out of here. This is my battery just almost died while I was here. This is going to be an expensive week for me. At Mac Air, I can tell you that.
Good for them, not good for you.
No, but you know what? I can't tell you how many times I've called Jackie and asked her questions before I ever bought anything there, and she helped me over the phone.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and then I've gone there. Well, I've gone first service, and I bought last, quite a bit.
So you've got your money's worth from them. So
Well,
it doesn't feel so bad that you're actually giving them money now.
Oh, no. Well, and as I said, this computer's 2013. I can't complain.
Right.
And I mean, I use it every day, and well, it's not for business now, but I have all of my finances, and if I get all my statements, everything online.
Your whole world is your computer, then it's worth it to keep it all up to date.
The problem I have is I get too many emails, and then I unsubscribe, and then they might unsubscribe.
Yeah, I know. I get that too, where you unsubscribe, think you're not going to get anything from them, and you still get stuff.
Well, the problem there is if it's a legitimate company, they'll probably unsubscribe you. If it's a fake company, they'll add you to more lists.
Turn the lights on, Steve. Oh well. I just always wonder if anything ever happened to the iCloud.
Your name?
We would all be
Kurt.
Kurt. Everything is in the cloud.
That's why I don't use it.
I know, but I mean, I always think that.
We've met before, Bob.
Yeah, I know.
People rely on the cloud for everything.
Yeah, I'm getting older.
Me too.
There is no paper account.
I don't want to have everything like somewhere that's that right.
Yes. Yes. That's why I like to.
I still like having some.
I think it's us as an older generation versus a younger generation. Like I have lots of movies, as you can see. I like music. It's like I want my own thing. So anything happens, it's my stuff, and I can play it.
No, I do know people that are now into just doing books, so they don't have to have. And then if you want to have like several books,
Yeah, I didn't have that camera on. Oh, and it looks like the main window has been covering our logos. Why? Sorry. Yeah, Microsoft is now offering downloaded disk images too. So you can download the OS, but it needs a key. Although it's interesting, I've seen with Windows 10, if you don't put a key in, it nags at you. It used to stop working if you don't put a key in. Now it just keeps nagging you. Yeah. I think they're afraid. They're afraid of Chrome, which is free. And Chromebooks are really cheap. In fact, they just came out with a new line of really cheap Windows laptops that are and are working on a new really cheap version of Windows, which was supposed to be what Windows S was, but that never caught on. No one cared. But you can download it. So even on a Mac, and in fact, you might have noticed the link was active. You can download the Windows ISO, write it to a flash drive, and then use it to install on a PC, which I've done a few times. Now, interesting. This is only the 1804 update, and this is the 1810 update. What happened to the? Maybe that's the 1809. So I'm having a problem with a PC at work. I cloned. He wanted to switch from a spinning drive to a solid state drive, so I cloned it, and everything was working fine. I disconnected the spinning drive from the computer, and it still booted the SSD fine. I erased the spinning drive, and it stopped booting the SSD. So what's the difference between not connected and erased?
Yeah.
So I tried to reinstall Windows because I figured it was that Windows genuine product advantage thing, and then Windows is telling me it won't install on a GPD file system, which is required by the UEFI BIOS. So, and I feel like I let the poor guy down. So I got to figure out what to do. I've been fighting with it for a couple of days now.
Don't think about it for a couple of days.
Yeah, don't think about it for a couple of days. So it may come down to erasing the drive, installing Windows, restoring his data. But the way Windows works, you have to install every program from scratch. You can't restore programs from a backup because of the way the Windows registry works. It only works during an install.
Well, that was why I stopped working on Windows.
Yeah, we joke over the years that we love selling Macs because they just work great. But we love selling Windows PCs because they come back for service so often.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Well, the problem with the Windows sometimes is the problems can be so terrible and complex that they chew up a lot of hours, and you can't possibly charge the customer for that number of hours.
Yeah.
Because it would be the equivalent of their buying a new machine.
Yep. Especially now that Windows PCs are so cheap. But we even have that problem on the Mac a lot now, partly because the parts are getting more expensive, but replacing the screen, $800.
Yeah.
Well, a new Mac is $1,000.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Or a Chromebook is $200. Or an iPad is $300. So, and we actually have seen a lot of customers doing that, replacing old Macs with iPads, because they do almost everything you want to do on your computer. And
if you're not a serious heavy-duty user.
Yeah. And even then, Jason Snell had an interesting story on 6 colors.
I wouldn't even know how to turn. I tried to look at a Windows computer the other day, Brent. I didn't even know what to do.
Yeah, I had a program that I really needed to have that only ran under Windows. So I went and bought a Windows notebook just for this program. And I struggled just making the OS work.
Yeah, like with the access.
What buttons? How do I load programs? How do I do this and that? So what I wound up doing was I used it for the class that I was taking. Found out that they could now put the program under the Mac OS, took the notebook back to Costco, they took it back.
A lot of programs have switched to web-based, so it doesn't matter what computer you're on, which is really nice. There we go. Apple quarterly results. I gotta find his one. Oh, the report card. That's probably it. The 6 colors. So Jason Snell, formerly from Macworld, runs a website now called 6 Colors, which was the original 6 colors of the Apple logo. And he always does these great graphs of Apple's quarterly sales. He talked about he uses an iPad exclusively for 99% of everything he does. But it let him down a little bit when numbers on the iPad couldn't do something he needed it to do to make one of these graphs. So he had to go to numbers on the Mac, do the change. And then because numbers shares through iCloud, it just popped up and displayed properly on his iPad. So I think he might, down here at the bottom, he had an article about that. No, I'm not going to find it, of course. So it's interesting seeing some of this stuff in graphing format on how amazing the revenue has been. And even in a bad quarter, it's still amazing. In fact, what they're making in other places, $20 billion in a quarter in profit, 84 billion. We talked about this at the main meeting too. The stock market went crazy when Apple announced before the results. They lowered expectations. They were originally projecting was it 93 to 95 billion dollars, and they announced that it would be lower, and stock nosedived. And then when the results came out, it's 84 billion. Well, it's not that much lower, but SEC regulations they had to file it. $84 billion in a quarter. They're making $1 billion a day, just about. And services are kind of the big deal now. Services are where 10 billion in revenue in services, which is iCloud, iTunes Music, or Apple Music now. Yes. Yeah, the quarter. And so, yeah, iBooks in the App Store. Let's see, the iPhone, 50 billion. So this top one, so where Apple makes most of its money on, services is bigger than the Mac and the iPad.
No wonder why there's the talk about Apple going to get rid of the Mac, roll it into an iPad.
There's a lot of speculation that some future device will be a merging of the Mac and the iPad. And there was actually, it was at one of the keynotes.
Surface Pro.
Right. So Microsoft has done that with the Surface Pro. It's a 23-inch touchscreen computer, and it where's that giant no? He talked about it at one of the keynotes, and on this 100-foot screen, a giant no came bouncing down. They're not merging the OS. But the Surface Pro is interesting. Leo Laporte uses one on This Week in Tech all the time, and it's a 23-inch touchscreen computer. It raises and lowers. So a lot of people are saying they would love that form factor that ran the Mac OS. Your iMac will tilt back and forth, but it's not a touchscreen. It doesn't go up and down. The Surface is a $3,000 computer, so it's as expensive as an iMac would be. But one of the problems on the Mac is it's not designed for touch, and that's the problem Windows has and has had all along. The controls are so small that trying to touch them with your fingers it's hard to reach some controls. And the concern was always gorilla arms. So I'm working on my laptop and I need to keep touching things up here. That's one of the reasons I went to the touch bar, because your fingers are already on the keyboard. I don't really think that's catching on very much. A lot of programs are using it for things. In fact, right now, touch bar has my Safari tabs open, which is handy, but I can do the same thing by clicking the mouse.
The big iPad Pro that.
Yeah, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, especially now that they've reduced the bezels, and it is such a really cool.
I think he says he has one here.
Is that a computer too, though?
It
You can pretend.
It depends on how you define computer.
And you can get
It is a mobile
keyboard
computing
that's
device.
Sort of usable, but this doesn't replace my hair.
I use my iPad for 90% of everything I do. The only major thing I do on the computer now is this the multi-camera video streaming. So I could be presenting on the Apple TV and showing all this stuff on the iPad, but recording and streaming it is tricky on the iPad. You can use the built-in camera. You can plug in some cameras on the iPad, but I haven't found a multi-camera program that doesn't require multiple iPads. So, which some people have done. A lot of podcasters, especially being in the podcast world, where each podcaster is on their own iPad, usually remotely, and then you mix those videos together and stream it out as a single stream, which can be done, just not with one iPad very easily.
What I've found is, as a total-on replacement for the other iPads, it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
The screen is nice. The pencil is nice. Everything. I mean, so the graphics programs and all that, much improved. I've got it both with and without the keyboard because I want to use it. I'll sit in the coffee shop and I want to do some work. The biggest problem that I'm faced with is I'm in a world between a keypad and a touch screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult to get organized when, okay, I can be typing, then I got to touch up here. Then I got to do this because there's no keys for it. So one or the other. Now, without the keypad, it's useless to try and type. I mean, the virtual keyboards and the little tactile keyboards and all those are kind of useless. But a functional keyboard, this is the Apple keyboard, but they're secondary keyboards that are as good or better.
See, I have that on my iPad.
Yeah, I find I don't mind the on-screen keyboard, but I find the angle better if I can stand it up and use a flat keyboard. So I've got a keyboard for my iPad too.
Well, the other thing depends on how much typing you're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I do an awful lot of typing. I'm writing things. So if I'm going to sit down and write 2,000 words, I'm certainly not going to do it on a virtual keyboard or a mini keyboard. I want something that's got some response.
I see that, how that works with the touch.
But can't they? I mean, isn't that a direction to go now, like to make a virtual input device that you use for
Right.
This will do all kinds of
The fear is people have found patents that Apple has filed for a glass keyboard. So replacing the physical keys on a computer with a glass keyboard. So think the touch bar extended for the entire keyboard. There's already a laptop that has a screen as the trackpad. So when you want it to be a trackpad, it's a touch screen trackpad. When you don't need the trackpad function, it's a screen. So it can be a second screen. They always show watching the news ticker, or a second screen doing something else while you're doing on your main screen. And one of the sort of idealistic things is you've got two screens that can act as one virtual display, or you're in a typing program, you get your alphabetic display. You're in Final Cut and you get your video editing keys. You're in Logic and you get your audio editing keys. Because all the keys are a screen, they can do that. And there is a screen that does that. It's physical separate keys, but each key is an LCD screen. and it's god awful expensive. Keyboard with each key a screen.
Good enough cross companies.
No.
Who brought them? You said Dennis brought them?
Dennis brought them, yeah.
You can still get some from him.
Who is Dennis?
Dennis Worcester.
Tall and skinny, the bastard. Sorry, Dennis, if you're listening.
Our youngest,
One of our, yeah, now that Rufo doesn't come anymore.
our youngest member,
Rufo's in Chicago, right?
yeah, he moved.
Yeah, here it is, the Optimus Popularis. Each key is a screen, and so programmers can make each key do whatever it wants. Anyone want to guess how much it is before I find the price?
It's $1,000.
Actually, no, not that bad.
How much is it?
I don't see a buy button.
Maybe you can't buy it yet.
Well, and what's really neat is for people that do multiple languages, it's go to store. With multiple languages, it's a breeze to switch languages.
So the issue I'm having now, using my iPad more for things, is like switching between full websites and apps for using certain things. Like I'm a Weight Watchers member, and of course Weight Watchers has an app now, but they also have a website, and they don't all have the same things. Like some functions are
The interface is different between apps and websites. Yeah, there's sort of more standardization on websites, standard conventions, but on apps, it's sort of anything goes. So oftentimes controls are hidden until someone shows you what that control is.
Or it's just missing the same space.
Yeah.
If you're shopping on eBay, on your desktop, everything's there. On your iPad, you don't have as many controls, you don't have as much display.
Yeah.
You sort of stumble through it, but.
Don't see the price. I'm trying to remember, the price was like $300-400, so it wasn't horrible, but it was really expensive.
Well, if you think about what a keyboard
Here's
costs.
here's an OLED version that is $1,000. Yeah. Yeah, so the Optimus Popularis is up to $1,500 if you have the OLED version. The LCD version is cheaper. But yeah, so that switching that interface between iPad controls and Mac controls can be tricky. One thing that sometimes helps is if the program you use, the same company makes the iPad version and the Mac version, because then there's more consistency.
Where the company does do both, like Fitbit,
But it still isn't consistent.
there are still things you can only do on the website, and some things you can only do in the app, and you can't do on the website. And I know that, people are still.
Well, it's about 5:15.
Yeah, I got a dinner guest, so I hate to.
Well, no problem. Thanks for coming.
It was a great time.
It's a wrap.
Yeah, probably. So Carol, there is, at the moment, there's no answer to the question other than hoping the company will straighten it out and make it more consistent. Well, part of your problem is part of the problem is that you're used to the old way. So somebody starting new that only ever uses an iPad wouldn't probably have the issues because they don't know the other way.
There's something better.
Yeah, don't know what they're missing. Yeah.
Well, and they don't care. If you think about the people developing it, it's like looking at people that don't use a desktop. Never used a desktop. Never will use a desktop. What do they care? If they get it done on their phone. If I told you the number of people that live off their phones, literally, keep their whole life, their calendar, their emails, I use mine for almost everything, but I still want to sit on my desktop.
And I can't imagine using just a phone because I need a bigger screen than that.
I do too. I want the big screen.
Yeah.
I use my Mac most of the time. I use my iPad when I go somewhere.
Yeah.
Because that gives me the portability that I like.
For some reason,
And you can link the line with the iPad because you'll go to the back and go back. So in the interim, tough out whatever you got to do.
Yeah, and I find that for most everything I do, the iPad is great.
Thank you, folks.
Yep, thanks for. You can go out the front door. You don't have to go back through the garage.
No, no. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, is anybody blocking anyone?
I'm down at the street part sideways in the Equinox.
I'm probably in front of you, but wait, are you?
I got 4-wheel drive.
You're in the turnaround.
Are you in the right? Okay.
Jeep is gone. I'm over at the right-hand side where the Jeep parked next to where the Jeep was. Where the Jeep's still there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll holler if there's anybody blind.
Okay.
Who's got the Chevy?
Yeah, he's the chef.
I have a gray Honda.
Yeah, we're behind you.
Okay.
So you guys gotta move on to let Bob out.
I didn't
Drove
want
the
to
Chevy
go
to the
over
levee,
there
but the
because
levee was dry.
Yeah.
I'm not good at backing up either.
I'm
Maybe
really.
there's a backup camera on it to let me
I
know.
have
My backup camera.
I have that camera too, but I still can't back up.
You know, the new RAV4, instead of the little screen that's kind of in the dashboard, it now has like, it looks just like the iPad sitting up right in the middle.
Sticking out.
It's brand
Yeah.
new.
Well, any last questions for the Q&A or?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure. Yep.
I've been away for a few weeks, and somehow my phone, I don't remember doing anything that would have changed the settings, but all of my contacts have been doubled.
Oh,
Yeah, I've had it before, and I'm sure I can figure out.
It's
I'm perplexed. I don't think I made any changes to settings or anything.
it probably was a sync error between the computer and the phone, where you turn the computer on and suddenly it syncs to the cloud, all the new stuff, and everything gets doubled.
I'm guessing I delete the contacts completely
Well,
and reload it.
look on your well. First off, do you sync between your computer and the phone with iCloud?
Yeah, I think so.
Check the computer to see if they doubled there, and check iCloud to see if they doubled there.
Yeah,
Because the computer has a look for duplicates command.
And I don't know about my computer, but
oh, you know what I doubled is the, I put in calendar to add all the Apple cider stuff. It's all in there twice.
yeah, that's what contacts, right?
No,
What's in there twice?
No, it's like on the main Apple thing, and it goes add to calendar. I must have done it twice.
Calendars are added twice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that could be two things. It could be the event is twice or the calendar is twice. So if your calendar is there twice, you can delete the second calendar to put the calendar back once. If the events are twice.
Is this yours?
Yeah.
Do you know when Neil Ambrosini?
He's
He's an
anesthesiologist. Yeah. Big jazz fan. Yeah. So on the computer, or on iCloud, there's no duplicate option. On the computer in the contacts program, there is a find duplicates. So if they're duplicated in the computer, then you have a look for duplicates command that will clean the duplicates and then resync it to the cloud to sync down to the phone. Alrighty. So I think we'll call that a day.
Did he get married?
And I don't know.
Oh, why not?
So thanks everyone for coming to the Saturday Q&A. And I'm going to put this screen back up. So that's the ending screen. And next month is April 10th. And we're going to be talking about iOS graphics on the cheap.